Neither privilege nor fame will keep violence away. In the last 35 years, more public figures have been attacked in America than in the 185 years before that. Ordinary citizens can encounter violence at their jobs to the point that homicide became a leading cause of death for women in the workplace. 20 years ago, which is now 45 years ago, the idea of someone going on a shooting spree at work was outlandish. Now it's in the news every week. In fact, since 2020, it's been in the news several times every week. And managing employee fear of such events is a frequent topic in the boardroom. While we are quick to judge the human rights record of every other country on earth, it is we, supposedly civilized Americans, whose murder rate is 10 times that of other Western nations, and we, civilized Americans, who kill women and children with the most alarming frequency. In sad fact, if a full jumbo jet crashed into a mountain, killing everyone on board, and if that happened every month, month in and month out, the number of people killed still wouldn't equal the number of women murdered by their husbands and boyfriends each year. Americans watched as bodies were carried away from the Oklahoma City bombing many years ago, and by the end of that week, we learned to our horror that 19 children had died in the blast. You now know, hearing this, that 70 children died that same week at the hands of a parent, just like every week, and most of them were under 5 years old. 4 million luckier children were physically abused last year, and it was not an unusual year. Statistics like this tend to distance us from the tragedies that surround each incident because we end up more impressed by the numbers than by the reality. To bring it closer to home, you personally know a woman who has been battered, and you've personally seen the warning signs. She or her husband or boyfriend works with you, lives near you, amazes you in sports, fills your prescriptions at the pharmacy, or advises on your taxes. You may not know, however, that women visit emergency rooms for injuries caused by their husbands or boyfriends more than for injuries from car accidents, robberies, and rapes combined. Our criminal justice system often lacks justice, and more often lacks reason. For example, America has thousands of people slated for execution, more by far than at any time in world history, yet the most frequent cause of death listed for those inmates is natural causes. That's because we execute fewer than 2% of those sentenced to die. It is actually safer for these men to live on death row than to live in some American neighborhoods. I explore capital punishment here not to promote it, for I am not an advocate, but rather because our attitude toward it raises a question that's key to this book. Are we really serious about fighting crime and violence? Often, it appears we are not. Here's just one example of what we accept. If you add up how long their victims would otherwise have lived, our country's murderers rob us of almost 1 million years of human life every year. I presented these facts about the frequency of violence for a reason: to increase the likelihood that you will believe it is at least possible that you or someone you care for will be a victim at some time. That belief is a key element in recognizing if you are ever in the presence of danger. That belief balances denial, the powerful and cunning enemy of successful predictions. Even having learned these facts of life and death, some listeners will still compartmentalize the hazards in order to exclude themselves. Sure, they say, there's a lot of violence, but that's in the inner city. Yeah, a lot of women are battered, but I'm not in a relationship right now. Violence is a problem for younger people, or older people, or you're only at risk if you're out late at night, or people bring it on themselves, and on and on. Americans are experts at denial, a choir whose song could be titled, "Things Like That Don't Happen in This Neighborhood."